Hi, I'm Luis. My story is like the rags to riches dream that people love to pedestalize. But I'll tell you this much, it wasn't easy. I was born in the projects of East LA. My mom, Lucinda, came from a rough family. Her cousins were associated with the Hazard Grande, a Latino gang from Ramona Heights, and she grew up around crime and poverty. She tried her best to live honestly, but it was tough. When I was younger, Mom used to tell me stories about violence, turf wars, and drugs. I'm eternally grateful that we've moved past that life. It couldn't have happened without her bravery. She was 18 when her high school boyfriend knocked her up and skipped town. Her family was livid and decided to cut her off. With nowhere to go, Mom moved into an apartment with 3 other girls and began to work as a waitress at a small restaurant. Jeff, the restaurant owner, was a simple, hard-working man. His ambition was to create a chain of restaurants in LA and become successful. My mom worked harder than anyone he had ever seen before, and he took a chance and made her the manager of his restaurant. This happened just a few months before I was born. After my birth, my mom's family also made amends with her, which meant that the pressure was off her shoulders. At least a little. It wasn't easy to juggle work and raising a baby, but now she had her parents and sisters to help her. As a kid, I spent more time with my abuelita than my mom because she was so busy working. She would adamantly refuse money from my cousins because she didn't like where it came from, and her mission was to make sure that I wouldn't fall into the same pitfalls as her family. Eventually, Jeff's admiration for Lucinda grew into love, and they began a relationship. We moved to a small house and started life as a family. When I was 4, Mom and Jeff got married, and our life outside the projects began. Even though Jeff and Mom made a great team running the restaurant, life was still tough. The business wasn't taking off, and there were always money troubles when I was growing up. However, this never stopped Jeff and Lucinda from giving me the perfect childhood. Sure, I didn't have a lot of toys or the latest video game console, but my parents gave me something much more important: their time. Jeff would teach me about running a restaurant whenever he had time, and I loved to visit him at work. Getting free food and chatting with the line chefs, I figured out what makes businesses tick. Mom, on the other hand, helped me differently. She ensured education was my priority, and I didn't fall in with the wrong crowd. I guess a good way of putting it would be that Jeff helped me with my street smarts while Mom kept me book smart. Where I grew up, the school district was terrible. Public schools have enough problems, and mine had more to boot. Decades of neglect meant that none of the teachers gave a damn, and neither did the students. Although my grades were excellent, there were no opportunities I could leverage to showcase my talent to the world. But that didn't stop me. I worked against the system by keeping my head down and constantly competing. I got state-level accolades in various activities, ranging from debate to science. Boy, it was fun to win against snobby prep school kids. Their lab fund was probably more than our entire budget, but that wasn't enough to take Olo Luis down. Even though I was doing so well, something bothered me as a kid. Although the restaurant gave us enough to survive, my parents never spent a single dime on themselves. Yes, I considered Jeff to be my dad. I thought outside the box and started to find opportunities online. I used sites like Khan Academy and began to create my own courses for sale on Coursera. I was an avid reader and artist, so I created an interactive art history workshop online. In my first week, I made $20. It wasn't a lot, but I immediately went to my parents smiling with pride. Mama, look, I got my first buyer. Oh, that's great. For your course online? Amazing stuff. You're only 13, and people are already learning from you, huh? Yes, but I wanted to order a pizza for you guys with the money. Can we? Oh, baby, that's so sweet. No, Luis, spend it on yourself. Yeah, don't worry about us, Luis. We're just happy to see you excited. Please? We went back and forth on it for a bit, but in the end, I got them a pizza. That greasy pie meant more to me than any 5-course meal. I didn't know it then, but my mom posted about my gesture, and it went viral. Like really viral. There was a lot of attention on me, and my high school counselor approached my mom about a scholarship opportunity. There's a super prestigious private school in Massachusetts, and the director of admissions chanced upon my video. She had contacted my middle school and wanted to meet with me. The meeting was going to be scheduled during my break. If the interview went well, I would get a full-ride scholarship to this academy. If it went well, I would start high school in one of the best places to learn in the country. My parents were equal parts excited and nervous. It would be a residential program, so I would basically travel across the country at the age of 14. Even for the interview, I would have to travel all the way to Massachusetts. Online interviews weren't really a thing back then, you see. Jeff took me while Mom took care of the restaurant. We packed 2 beaten-up suitcases into Jeff's old Volkswagen and set out from LA to Ma. I consider that trip as one of my fondest memories with my stepfather. We stopped at cheesy roadside attractions and fueled ourselves with greasy burgers. During the long stretches on the highway, Jeff talked and motivated me for the interview. When we finally got there, I didn't feel nervous at all. The campus was like something out of a movie, a fancy British movie. Old buildings and kids walking around in blue suits. I definitely stuck out like a sore thumb, but the head of admissions wasn't scary at all. She was calm and understanding and spoke to me casually. I had a portfolio of all the work I had done, and she was definitely impressed. I was old enough to know that there was a chance that this was all a publicity stunt. I mean, I'm sure it would help the academy to have a viral sensation as part of their student base. I guess I've always been a cynic. But that wasn't the case, and I felt more at ease than before. I left with a handshake and a smile, and within a week we got a confirmation I was going to go to Massachusetts. Life wasn't the same after that, in both good ways and bad. My parents sent me off with a smile, even though both of them were nervous and scared. Do well, Mijo. I knew you were capable of anything. Call us if you need anything. We'll try and visit you, bucko. I'll miss you guys. With a heavy heart, I left for the academy, and I'll tell you this, the first few months were tough. The shiny facade of facilities and faculty was broken down by the type of kids who were there. Most of them were from extremely wealthy families, and it was really difficult to get along with them. I was the only one there who considered a $50,000 tuition fee to be insane. Think about that. I also didn't have the money for fancy clothes, shoes, or hobbies. It was so awkward when everything people chatted about was things that were unfathomable to me. In my first week of orientation, for example, 2 kids got into it about the genetic ancestry of their family's thoroughbred horses. I mean, what's a kid from LA going to say about that? Apart from the money, everyone was hyper-aware of people's backgrounds. That is to say, what kind of family background they had. Most were wealthy wasps, and kids from other backgrounds were usually looked down on. By the time the second month of school ended, I already wanted to go home. The lack of comfort and support meant that I became more introverted than before and stopped putting myself out there. Even though keeping my grades up was easy, I developed an inferiority complex. I was too scared to compete with other kids in the academy because of how they spoke and behaved. I mean, I just felt awkward and started becoming a loner. I don't know how I would have gotten through that time if it weren't for Terry. Terry was a year older than me and a part of the music club. I wouldn't have known him except that I came upon him practicing once. He shared a similar taste in music to mine, and we spoke for an hour about East Coast vs. West Coast. There was something different about him, and I couldn't really put my finger on it, but ever since that day, I had someone to talk to and hang out with. Through Terry, I also got to meet other people who weren't like the typical snooty crowd at the academy. I realized that I wasn't the only one who felt out of place there, and a lot of us were trying our best for ourselves and our families. Terry and I had a conversation about it one day after we heard a bunch of girls discussing their summer home in Cabo. PFF, can you imagine? Vacationing in Cabo? I'm going to be spending the summer helping my mom with her business. Yep, same here. My parents both run it together, but I help them with the books when I have time. No kidding? You have to be super smart. Mom won't trust me with anything like that since the board would get too bent out of shape. Ah, there's no board because it's just a small restaurant. We have like 10 people working with us. Why do you say that like it's a bad thing? I mean, your family runs half the warehouses in the US, so it's a little difficult to compare. Luis, don't be insecure and let that get into your head. I mean, I'm the first generation that has it good. My grandpa was working as a dock worker before he started the company. Just because I'm well off doesn't mean I don't understand the value of money. Unlike some people here, am I right? Yeah, that's true. Terry was always super honest, and conversations like this one helped me grow as a person. I introspected a lot and realized that I was being judgmental too. Not everyone who came from money was a bad person or a snob. Sure, there were people like that, but I didn't have to hang out with them. Even more importantly, I didn't have to listen to them or their gossip about me. This epiphany became my mantra, and I really began to enjoy my time at the academy. Along with Terry, I formed a close group of friends and took part in social activities. I realized I was really good at a lot of things and people started to take notice of that. Not everyone was an admirer of my newfound confidence, though. In the last few years of my time in high school, I got on the radar of William. He was the worst kind of person you could imagine. His father was one of the biggest donors to the academy, and it was no secret that he was untouchable. I'll give credit where credit is due. The guy used to work hard. He had a lot of accolades and was the prefect of our grade. I don't doubt that he was clever, but he was one of those snobby people who made my blood boil. When I started winning competitions and competing against him academically, William began to play dirty. He and his lackeys would keep trying to bring me down and insult me because of my financial position. It got to the point once where we even had a brawl on the football field. Terry used to stick up for me, and eventually that meant he got ostracized from the egg crowd too. As my friend, though, he cared more about sticking to his beliefs than impressing some rich brats. I had grown resilient to bullying and peer pressure by the time William set his sights on me, so to be honest, he was more of a nuisance than anything else. The only thing he said that really got to me was a brief encounter where my parents were involved. Mom and Jeff had come to pick me up for winter break, and I was in the waiting area with William. His Rolls-Royce came at the same time as my stepdad's old Volkswagen, and I could see a smug smile form on the corner of his face as my parents stepped out. "Hello, you must be Louis' parents." "I'm William. It's a pleasure to meet you." "What a nice young boy." "Hello, William. I'm Lucinda, Louis' mom." "Hiya. I'm his stepdad, Jeff." "Let's just go. We might fall behind schedule if we don't leave immediately." "Nonsense, Louis. We have a little bit of time. So tell me, William, are you and Louis good friends?" "Oh yes, Ma, am, the best of friends. But sometimes I worry about him. There's just so much kids can say, you know." "What do you mean? Is someone trying to pick a fight with my kid?" "Not exactly that, but, well, people don't think Louis belongs here. I hate to say this, but just being at the academy won't buy you class. People think Louis is uncultured, and they say terrible things about you guys. I mean, a little restaurant owner running with the best of the best? Everyone says he's just here by chance because of that video. I don't think it's true, of course, but well." With that, William planted a seed of insecurity in my parents. For the whole road trip back, they grilled me on who was bullying me and about what. I told them that William was a jerk and he was hamming it up, but that didn't make them feel any better. The person who was bullying me basically had the guts to insult me in front of their faces. I was immune to all the stupidity about class and culture, but my parents weren't. The fact that he brought up the video was also a low blow. I won't lie. I admit my admission was under special circumstances, but the head of admissions told me that they would have accepted me on merit alone. After all, I wasn't exactly kicking rocks in middle school. After that, it was an all-out war. I never cared when that fat idiot went after me or Terry because I knew we were immune to his poison. But my parents? That was a step too far. In my final year of high school, William and I were both in the running for valedictorian, and I busted my hump to beat him. I was certain my grades were better than him, right until the second semester. All of a sudden, teachers began to grade me really harshly, and I didn't know where it was coming from. Of course, I didn't mind getting low grades if there was a reason behind it, but I began to feel unjustly singled out. Soon enough, William was the only one who was set to be valedictorian, and I was devastated. When we're young, we tend to fixate on things, don't we? Well, I was fixated on getting valedictorian as a way to stick it to my snobby bully. I almost stopped prepping for the SATs and college admissions until Terry told me the truth about what really went down. "Hey bud, did you finish your CELP to Duke? The deadline is tomorrow." "Nah, I don't think I'll apply." I was wondering whether college is the right choice for me. Maybe I should go back to LA and work on the restaurant. Hey, where's all this coming from? What? Can he do that? Honestly, he can do anything here. His family has been attending the academy for like 100 years. I don't think there's anything we could do that would work against him, but that doesn't mean you should give up on college. It's not a money pit. Apply for scholarships and I'm sure you'll get in somewhere great, man. That pep talk really helped me, and I learned to let go of the whole valedictorian thing. Even though Terry was going to rub it in my face, I didn't really care. The only thing that mattered to me was going to be the next chapter. Sure enough, I got a great SAT score and went on to pursue a degree in economics from Yale. After that, I took the GMAT exam and did an MBA from Wharton. William got into Harvard with a legacy connection, and he started to work as a consultant somewhere. As for Terry, he earned a degree from Duke and went to work in his mom's company. I began to work in a large FMCG company and made more money than I had ever seen before. I mean, it was insane. The first thing I did was give back as much as I could to Mom and Jeff. I bought them a nice house in LA and sold the restaurant. After that, I created an investment portfolio that would ensure they never had to work a day in their lives. During this time, I also met the love of my life, June. She ran the coffee shop where I would stop in before work, and I found myself captivated by her personality. We started dating in 2015 and got married just before the pandemic. The plan was going to be to buy a house and then try for a family, but there was a spanner in the works. I got laid off during a mass workforce cut, and nobody else was hiring. Because of this, June had to sell her coffee shop and we had to coast off of our savings for a while. The two of us moved in with Mom and Jeff. They were loving and supportive, and I'm grateful for the way they took June in. I still find myself lucky to have gone through the pandemic without something more tragic happening. When jobs started opening up again, I came to a realization I didn't want to get back into corporate drudgery. Although I was good at my job before and made a lot of money, it wasn't something that gave me joy. I wanted my own business, just like Jeff had. However, we were going to work on a bigger scale. I spoke to Terry about my idea and took him on as an investor. The idea? We were going to revolutionize fine dining across the United States. I had a vision of opening several restaurants, each focusing on its own unique cuisines and experiences, run by expert chefs. June became my business partner, and we started with our first restaurant in Pacific Palisades. It took off like a rocket, and people were going crazy over our food. I had June to thank for that, though, since she was great with social media. Eventually, we opened another restaurant in Florida, and then another. The business also spun off into a line of condiments and sauces, managed entirely by June. By 2023, I was making more money than I did working in corporate, and our restaurants showed no signs of stopping their growth. I'm super happy with where my life is right now. I've been able to build a new life for myself and my family. My career is right where I want it to be. My friends are amazing, and I'm able to pursue all my hobbies. The funny part is that I'm doing a whole lot better than the people who thought I would amount to nothing due to my background. I know this for a fact because of a recent incident involving my old nemesis William. I don't know why, but that guy never stopped bringing me down. After we got our first jobs, William was the only guy to flex his money at alumni meetings, mostly in comparison to me. The ironic part was that I was actually making a touch more than him after my MBA. But I wasn't one to brag about it. My lifestyle was a lot more simple than his, and obviously his parents also paid for a lot of his luxurious escapades. For me, the priority was investing my money and making sure that I had a good nest egg when I retired. After I got laid off, William even made fun of me on the group chat we all shared. He said that it was bound to happen and the pandemic just sped things along. The worst part is that he's working in a company that's partly owned by his family, so he's not exactly someone who's ever had to worry about job security. But I didn't really care about all this. I just stopped communicating with my old classmates and moved on. Like I said, the only person I still really talk to is Terry. This was the reason. Nobody else stood up for me in the group, just like old times. However, William forced my hand when he made fun of me in front of my wife, June. I gave him a reality check. It happened last month at one of our restaurants. I had planned for a special evening at our first location to celebrate June's birthday. During the day, we were going to spend time with her and my family, and in the evening, we would go out for a romantic dinner. It was a budding tradition that had started after I built our first restaurant. Due to the high demand that we had, bookings were usually taken months in advance, so my friends were definitely jealous of the ownership privileges I had. Hey. Everything was going perfectly, and June and I had sat down with a bottle of Chardonnay. However, the mood was spoiled when I heard a familiar voice behind me. Well, I'll be. Is that Louise? From back in the day? Oh, hello. Hey buddy, how've ya been? Still, running restaurants? Figuring out what kind of burger to flip? Yeah, I guess you could say that. I guess William wasn't up to date with what I had been doing after the pandemic. I decided to play along with his ignorance and figure out when I would give him a rude awakening. Hey baby, who's this? A friend of yours, ex-classmate. Do you remember that fancy academy I went to on scholarship? Probably the fanciest place you've ever seen, am I right? Man, I gotta say I'm surprised to see you here. I didn't know they let anybody into this establishment. What, you got an in with the waiters here or something? Are they your cousins? Barely concealing a smirk, I continued. Yeah, I guess you could say I have a connection to this place. I knew it, don't be shy. Anyhow, I'm going to go. I've got a hot date with a high-profile model. She's been dying to come here and I finally got it done. I love this place, man. It's a really classy establishment. With that, we parted ways and sat on opposite corners of the restaurant. I filled June in about who William was and how he made my life miserable back in school. She had already sensed something was off, and that's why she didn't speak up about me owning the restaurant. Soon after, I saw a tall woman come in and sit with William. I didn't pay them too much heed after that because the day was all about my beautiful wife. But every time I did catch a glance, I saw William get more and more drunk, and the poor date he was with barely got a word in edgewise. After everything was done, June and I were going to head out. I helped the waiter clear the table and got a quick update on how the night had gone. However, the staff naturally didn't give us a bill. Will caught that as we were heading out and shouted from across the room. "Hey, are you trying to dine and dash? Waiter, check this guy's wallet. I think one appetizer is his monthly income. Hey, keep your voice down. That's so embarrassing. Hey, don't be like that. I have nothing to be embarrassed about. If anything, it's that chick who should be embarrassed." William got up and pointed at June, and with slurred words he began to speak. "You're here with a loser who wasn't good enough for school. He got in on pity points and then got laid off from his first job. Hey, if I were you, lady, I'd be really embarrassed right now. Raquel, you on. The other hand, are here with one of the most eligible bachelors in the area. So honestly, you should be grateful." Both June and William's date, who I later recognized as Raquel Perez, a well-known model in the LA area, were both livid. Enough was enough. I had to step in. With one glance at the waiter, the two of us went over to William and grabbed him by each shoulder. Despite his struggles, we easily took him to the door and kicked him out. His screams of "Do you know who my father is?" fell on deaf ears. "Waiter, why are you ganging up on me with this loser? I'm a valued customer. This guy probably can't even pay for dinner." That's enough. In case it hasn't got through your thick skull by now, I'm the guy who runs this restaurant. In fact, I run a lot of restaurants in the US, and you're permanently banned from all of them. The look on William's face was so funny, I wish I had taken a picture. His eyes popped out, his jaw dropped, and he suddenly turned as white as a sheet. Oh, I didn't know that. Listen, Luis, it's just the alcohol talking. I made a fool of myself. Please don't ban me, I bring clients here for work and... I couldn't care less. It's not just the alcohol, it's you looking down your nose at me, just like your crowd at that snobby school. Well, I'm making what you earn each year, in a month. So chew on that. June and Raquel had also made their way out to the front door at this time and heard everything I said. "William, this is true?" "Babe, I can explain." "There's no need. I mean, you were such a terrible bore today, I thought maybe he is a nice guy. But no, you're just a spoiled rich boy. I need a man in my life. I'm not going anywhere with a jerk like you." With a turn of her heels, Raquel walked away to her car. William stood there dumbfounded, and then he too went away gnashing his teeth. June and I couldn't help laughing at him, and then we went home talking about what a wild night it had been. It may seem like a small incident, but I've been thinking about it. I feel like it shows me something background isn't going to be enough. Yeah, it definitely helps. I mean, William got into a good school and college because of his connections, but how far can he really go? Eventually, there's no more help Daddy can give him, and he's stuck in a dead-end high-pressure job. I may have come from helping my family run a humble diner, and sure, it's not glamorous, but it taught me a lot more than anything you can pick up in any school. The experiences I had shaped my success, and people like William are never going to have that. Sometimes, I feel a little sorry for him. At the end of the day, I'm the guy who won. He's the guy who was stumbling around the doors of my restaurant and begging for a second chance. I guess that's karma.